call to the most honourable member for Riverina.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Small business plays a crucial role in the Australian economy. Now, according to the 2023 Small Business Data Report, approximately 42% of private sector employment is in the small business sector. It adds 1/3 of gross value. It accounts for 97.5% of all businesses, at roughly 2.5 million, and small business generates $500 billion of economic activity. Now, that's 1/3 of Australia's gross domestic product. They are big numbers. They are impressive figures. And we should, as the member for Chisholm has just stated, do everything we can to help small business. Now, last week, and I hear from the member for Moreton, and he knows how important small business is in his Queensland community. And last week we heard, and we welcomed indeed, the member for Chifley, the Minister for Science and Industry, saying that small business needed some tax relief, some more tax relief. In fact, he said that the corporate tax rate should be lowered. He's not here this week. Maybe he's been sent for reprogramming by the Treasurer, who I'm not quite sure totally agreed with the member for Chifley's assessment of where the corporate tax rate is or should be. But no doubt the member for Chifley will consider the error of his ways when he goes against the member for Rankin. But indeed, and I say that very facetiously, Deputy Speaker, I wouldn't want people to think I don't believe that the small business, indeed the corporate tax rate, should be lowered, because when I was the Small Business Minister back in 2016-17, the small business tax rate went down to its lowest level in 70 years. I was very proud of that. Very proud of that, because we should, as I just said, and the member for Chisholm agreed in her contribution, be doing everything we can to support, to promote, to enhance small business, because it's small business people who take the risk. It's small business people who open the doors, who pay the rent, who pay the wages. Now they're having to pay even more wages after the announcement this week by the Fair Work Commission that wages are to go up by 3.75%. And no one denies workers shouldn't be paid their dues. No one denies that. But it comes back on the back of small business. They have to then find in a cost of living crisis more to pay their workers. What do? Do they put the price of their products up? Do they put the cost of their services up? Who ultimately pays for that? Well, it's the consumer, it's the customer. Someone has to pay. Someone has to pay, whether it's superannuation, whether it's the wages, and it's that small business operator, that person who often pays their employees first, as they should, who puts away the money for the superannuation, as they should, who often gets paid less in small business than the person, in fact, who they employ to help run their shops. And I pay tribute and credit to those small business operators. They are risk takers. In many cases, i.e. farmers, they are price takers, not price makers. And they are certainly risk takers, because they operate on the smell of an oily rag, they operate on the whim of the weather gods, they operate on, indeed, whether there is going to be good times in the economy or not. Now, we're talking about payment times reporting, and indeed anything that can be done to ensure that payment times are what they should be has got to be considered very much on its merit and very much supported by the coalition. But let's just consider the 4 June Daily Telegraph editorial which was headed "Insolvencies are climbing and could send New South Wales broke." Luke Atcher-Strat was a co-writer of this. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Council of Small Business Organisations Australia. So when he speaks, we ought to listen. It was co-authored by Danita Warren, someone very well known to me. She's CEO of Master Builders Australia. And she and he, like the good member for Chifley, Bill the Cap, He calls for a lower corporate tax rate. They, in a very what could be called grim article, wrote about the shocking insolvency figures released just last week, detailing the crisis facing small business in New South Wales, in my home state. ASIC's latest insolvency statistics provides the horrid figure of almost 4,000 New South Wales businesses going bust in the year to date. That's what they wrote. That was the second sentence in that very alarming article. Business insolvencies in New South Wales are now up 61% year on year. They continued. In the same week, the New South Wales Government set ambitious housing targets to be met. The sobering news is construction industry insolvencies are up, wait for this one, 111% from this time last year. And we have a housing minister who talks about increasing the housing stock. And I don't necessarily disagree with her, but when you've got state governments that are shutting down gas, when you've got state governments like Victoria stopping the timber industry, I do wonder, indeed, how this is going to be met by the housing industry when they are trying to power homes, when they are trying to construct homes. What, in goodness knows name, will they be building houses out of if they can't use Australian timber? Good Australian timber. Well, what we'll do is we'll import it. What we'll do is we'll just rape and pillage rainforests overseas to get the timber we need to build our houses to indeed accommodate the numbers of migration, which is just not sustainable. The numbers are just not sustainable. In fact, in January, February alone, we welcomed, and I do use the word welcomed, more than 100,000 new citizens in each of those months as part of the overseas migration intake. Now, that number is equivalent to the yearly total of migrants during the Howard era, the yearly total. And this comes on the back of a cost of living crisis. This comes on the back of a housing crisis. And this, sure, I don't disagree with you, but I don't disagree with the minister at the table. But it still is a truism that we are importing record numbers of people. They are staying mainly on the eastern seaboard, where 85% of Australians live. They are not taking up the offers of employment or accommodation in regional Australia. And regional Australia, let me tell you, which carried this nation, by the way, during COVID.
And out of that all the time, not just COVID.
Indeed, but particularly during, I take that member for Page, all the time. But well, we have great conversations, let me tell you. Unlike the caucus of the Labor Party, we actually get along. Indeed, regional Australia is carrying this nation, but no more so than during COVID. And small businesses in regional Australia are doing it tough. They are doing it tough. And as this Daily Telegraph editorial by the two authors I mentioned earlier states, we are clearly not doing enough to support those doing it tough. Legislating housing targets is one thing, but ensuring builders could remain in business and deliver on these targets is another. Recent building approval figures for New South Wales show over the last 12 months less than 45,000 homes were approved, well below the 75,000 required each year. And that's just New South Wales. That's just New South Wales. It doesn't take into account Queensland or Victoria, indeed where there's so much pressure on the housing markets, but indeed right across the nation, and the ASIC figures, as Luke and Danita point out, also reveal very few industries were left untouched. Retail industry insolvencies are up 31% year on year. 31%, Deputy Speaker. The stakes are extremely high, with 850,000 small businesses in New South Wales employing 1.7 million people and paying annual wages of almost $70 billion. But what did we get during the recent budget? Well, we got 36,000 more public servants. That's what we got. Someone's got to pay for those too. Taxes will pay for those. Taxes earned by small businesses, taxes paid by small businesses, taxes paid right across the board. And the editorial said that we seem to have forgotten that a future plan for Australia starts with empowering the entrepreneurs willing to risk their own capital. We need to ensure red tape is reduced rather than increased to help small businesses thrive. And of course that is so very true. They added, too many government measures are only adding to the fatigue of small business owners. For instance, from 1 January, all small cafes and restaurants will be required to label the origin of each seafood item on its menu. While this might make business sense for luxury establishment, it means more cost and red tape for mum and dad fish and chip shops selling seafood baskets and marinara pizzas. The New South Wales Small Business Commissioner has estimated costs of over $2,800 for a small business owner to physically alter printed menus. Just another bit of bureaucracy, just another bit of red tape brought to you by a Labor government. That's right, brought to you by a Labor government. That'll be the day. And this bill seeks to achieve several outcomes. It's going to create a mechanism to permit the Minister for Small Business to direct an entity found to be in the slowest 20% of payers overall or by industry to make enhanced disclosures to the regulator. It is also going to name and shame. It's going to permit the minister to direct a slow-paying entity to state in public-facing materials that it is a slow small business payer and provide information on how to access its payment times reports. Allow the regulator to record in the register that an entity is a slow small business payer. Now, there may be any number of reasons, good and bad, for a business to be tardy in paying its bills. Does it deserve to be named and shamed? Well, according to the government, yes. It is going to, this bill, expand the functions of the regulator to include research, publishing and outreach with respect to payment outcomes. Update the objects of the Act to reflect the purpose of improving payment outcomes for small businesses and incentivising large businesses to make prompt payments. Streamline reporting obligations and decrease the regulatory burden experienced by reporting entities, as well as enable consolidated reporting in accordance with Australian accounting standards to improve the quality, completeness and comparability of data reported on the register. So it is going to be more onerous on small businesses. And whilst the coalition supports the measures this bill contains, we need to remember in everything we do in this place that there are people out there who are doing it really tough. There are small business operators who are finding it very difficult to keep opening their doors, to keep the lights on. And that's not just because their power bills are going through the roof, but just because of the red tape and bureaucracy that this Labor government seems to always want to foist on small business. Not many of those opposite, a few, I will admit and agree, have actually run a small business. Many of them have actually run picket lines out the front of businesses, but not many of them have actually operated a small business. I have. I know it's tough. I know the member for Page has run a successful business. We come to this place with that knowledge, with that expertise, with that skin in the game, with having put our own hard-earned on the line to build a better local economy and to help our families at the end of the day. That's first and foremost. But this government is doing so much to impede and hamper small business smoothness and efficiency. I will acknowledge the work being done by Bruce Bilson, a former small business minister, heading up the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman's Office. Now, small businesses should go to ASBIFIO and have a look at what they have available on their website, because it is vast, it's knowledgeable, it will help a small business operate in these difficult times, in these trying circumstances. It will help them with tax, it will help them navigate their way through the various acts, and it is to be encouraged and admired. I worry about small business, I do. I worry about the fact that unions are dictating the terms to this government, as you would expect. There's always a payday. There's always a payday when a Labor government is elected, because they've got to pay back their union masters. They've got to pay back those who pull the strings. They are mere puppets of the union movement. They are mere puppets of the trade union movement, and that only affects and impedes and slows small businesses across Australia who need every bit of help from this disappointing government.